The communication I was requested to make today, and I will make it to the last full stop. I will make it to the last full stop. I will make it to the last full stop. You are to fund a senator, deputy minority leader. You are to fund. I'm on the seat, and you cannot pretend.
Okay, I just want to know what happened. Like, this is the part where you tell us exactly what happened, Francis. I'm not even going to purport to start talking. What was going on at the Senate this week? Actually, it even started last week, didn't it?
Last week.
Yeah, but this week was like...
culmination.
Yeah, the peak, crazy. The climax, what happened?
Now, this is what happened. You remember the team of Jubilee MPs who went to State House?
Yep.
32 of them. Among them was Fatma Dulo. Fatma Dulo is the minority whip in the Senate. Mm-hmm. So after that trip, there are two members of parliament who are targeted, who are part of that delegation. One is Fatma Dulo, the Senate minority whip, and Sabina Chege, the deputy minority whip in the National Assembly.
Yep.
Sabina's case is yet to be to trigger debate in the National Assembly. Probably it will next week or thereabout. Let's wait for that. But in the meantime, in the Senate, the Azimio senators felt that the Isiolo senator could no longer serve the interests of the minority team as the whip, now that she has already said she will work with the government. Mm-hmm. and for purposes of development and going on. So they went and met, the Azimio senators went for a parliamentary group meeting and met Raila Odinga, the Azimio team leader. And during that meeting, the senators resolved to have a change of guard or change their leadership in the House. And actually, the changes were communicated and were announced by the Azimio leader, and these were the announcements. Just listen to the announcements, because this is what triggered the altercations that you've seen in the Senate.
Once the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests.
The minority leader is Honorable Stuart Mazayo, deputed by Honorable Senator Enoch Wambua from Kitui, and the whip is Honorable Ledama Olekina, deputized by Honorable Edwin Sifuna. And that is our lineup in the Senate. This is because some officials who were there before have opted to now work with the majority party in the Senate.
Correct. That is exactly what triggered the discussion. So once those changes were made, they were to be communicated formally to the Speaker of the Senate to effect the changes. All that is required is, number one, the minutes of that parliamentary group meeting and the lists of the officials or the leadership of the House. And so when that was taken to the Speaker of the Senate, Amason Kingi, the majority team defended Fatma Dulo, obviously, as would have been expected. And so the Azimio team felt that the Speaker was taking sides in this debate, which they thought was a pretty simple and straightforward matter. This is the leadership of the minority team in the Senate, so just effect it and recognize it as it was. And so what else happened? The Isiolo senator, the Senate minority whip, went to the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal, PPDT, and obtained orders to stay the change of guard. And so the Azimio senators are arguing a matter that is live in the Senate should not be canvassed in a court of law, because the tribunal also has the same powers as a magistrate's court. And so they argue that since the matter is live in the Senate, it should not have found its way into the Senate. And so they have been demanding communication from the chair to confirm that the change of guard has been effected. And every time that the Speaker does not say what they want to hear, they bring the drama like we saw last week and the course of this week. Of course, the culmination was yesterday, which was quite an ugly altercation. For the very first time I saw in that Senate, where the Speaker is speaking and the minority team is heckling the speaker, making it impossible for him to talk. And on the other side, you hear, name calling and so on and so forth, which is quite an ugly scene. Yesterday, the speaker sent out of the House 4 senators, Olekina, Mazayo, Enoch Kwambua, and Eddie Okech, the senator for Migori. And then after a break of about 30 minutes, he came back to the House and decided to undo what he had done. Of course, there is no standing order that allows the speaker to forgive a member who has been sent away. But standing order number 1 also allows the speaker to make decisions when a certain matter is not clearly and strictly provided for in the standing order. So that is the debate as it is. Yeah. That is where we are.
And even if the minority party wants to make changes in its leadership, it has the prerogative to do so. Mm-hmm. And it has happened in the past where we've had leaders being replaced. Remember when former Senator current CS Kipchumba Murkomen was removed as majority leader in the last parliament and was replaced by Pogisho. And then now Nakuru Governor Susan Kika Kimani was removed as majority whip. She was replaced by Rungu Kangata. And then later on, Kimani Wamatangi, it happened. And then also there was a time when the current CS for Interior, who was the Deputy Speaker, Kithure Kindiki, was voted out as Deputy Speaker by the Senate. So it has happened before, and there are procedures to be followed. So if the minority party wants to make changes in its leadership in the House, they have the prerogative to do so. As I said, the work is just to inform the Speaker and make sure that correct procedure was followed. Gashuri spoke about, yes, you need to have the minutes, you need to show who was there. You need to make sure that, well, did they meet? Yes, they did. And they decided. Were there minutes? Yes. Was there a quorum? Yes. Was the speaker notified? Yes. Was Fatma Dulo informed? Yes. If all that was followed, the decision should have been made a long time ago. As Gashuri said, Dulo is being protected by the majority because, of course, she was among those members of parliament who went to State House. Yeah. But what purpose would she serve if it seems like she's probably going to cross the aisle and join the other side if she remains in that position? There was no consultation with the majority and the House when they were picking the leaders, the minority whip and the minority leader in the parliament.
And same for the majority, right?
For the majority. So there should not be that consultation now that we decided we want to make changes because of the fact that we believe that you're no longer loyal to the party.
Okay, and there's something you've talked about, the history. We'll come back to that in a moment. But I just want to, Gashuri, you talked about that moment in the House now when the Deputy Speaker is now saying everybody's out of order, he's throwing people out and perhaps rethinking that decision. I just want us to listen to that. And then we'll come back and talk about, we have been here before, as Jamila has pointed out, and say, okay, so what's happening? This is history repeating itself. It's payback and something that is seemingly becoming the norm in this country. Let's listen to the Deputy Speaker on both counts.
To standing under 122. 2. The following senators out of the chamber for the next 3 days. For the next 3 days. Senator Wambua, Enoch, the minority leader, Senator Mazayo, Senator Olekina, and Senator Enoch. I order you out of the chamber. It is clear that the scope of the order extends to the position of the Senate Minority Whip and members of Jubilee Party of Kenya.
So I'd really like to get the permission of the now Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, to use his phrase, because I understand he's,
copyrighted,
he's copyrighted it.
Well, only
does that sound like what we remember? Noisy, messy, and with casualties? Linus, we've been here before. Jamila reminded us when it was Kipchumba Murkomen who was the majority leader in the Senate. We had Kithure Kindiki, who was Deputy Speaker. We've seen all of these things happening, and we're seeing it happening, and much in the same fashion, that, you know, you have the Speaker who might delay making or effecting certain changes. I mean, you know, here we are again.
Yeah, we're here, and this Senate has picked it up exactly where the last Senate left it. This Senate, just like the previous one, is the playground of the executive. Games start at State House, games start at the headquarters of Raila Odinga's campaign, and that is where the influence of what goes on in there continues. So this is the unfortunate thing, we must admit, that the Senate really remains a playground of the executive. What we saw there are not independent senators. These are not senators that are acting in their own free will. This is also a continuation of the ongoing battles between President William Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga. It is extended to the floor of the House. Just like the previous Senate, where we had fights between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga on one hand, and Deputy President then William Ruto at the time. And this also went to the ground. This is why I say the Senate, unfortunately, is the playground of the executive. And here is one thing that is also really, really glaring. We don't see leadership. Where is Speaker Kingi? Where is the Speaker of the House, Emerson Kingi? Is he stamping his authority in the House? Should he have been away on a day like yesterday? Maybe Francis is...
Actually, the whole of the week.
The whole of it's not been around. Look at that. And it shows that the House also lacks leadership. And the inexperience of the Deputy Speaker also showed. You know, when he went into this shouting match with the opposition senators. So there's something missing in the new Senate. And the first thing is leadership. We have not yet felt the hand of Speaker Emerson Kingi. We're not feeling his jurisprudence in terms of setting the rules in the House. There is something memorable about both former Speaker
Ken Lusaka
and Ekwe-Thuro. Both of them, you know, you could see ownership of that seat. They were in charge of the House. This House looks unattended to. This House looks like it is on its own. And this House looks like it's running from other places and not the seat of the Speaker. And that is something really, really unfortunate. And then again, it goes to the general problem of lack of growth of our institutions. This is a delay on the part of Senate. By now, the Senate is supposed to be now on its third term, a very strong House that counterchecks State House, almost in equal strength. The Speaker is supposed to be someone the President would look up to for advice, for guidance and direction. But can he right now? Did you see anything that looks like leadership today in that floor of the House? And lastly, we are seeing senators, and let's call them parliamentarians, who have not fully appreciated that the legislative arm is actually supposed to be independent, and that their standing orders are sacred. Their way of conducting business is actually internal. It's a ritual. It's something very, very, can I call it sacred? That even when the President comes, and remember, the President comes to address the House upon invitation by the...
Actually, upon request.
Yes, he requests.
Yeah, he requests to come and address the nation from the House.
Yes. Look at this. Does he need to request? He just needs to walk in, basically. They are followers. They're not leaders. And what we have seen in the last 1 week, really, is something regrettable, that we are not growing, we are not appreciating the minority-majority divide, what the role of minority is and what the role of majority of minority is. You're seeing the scramble for the leadership of the minority by the majority and the minority. It's a mess, and it's something that should be found regrettable and part of processes that are delaying maturity of our democracy. Because it's something really, really positive if we can have a parliament, and by parliament I mean both the National Assembly and the Senate, that appreciates its place, a place that can be looked at in the same way Americans, for example, regard the Congress. There's leadership coming out of the Senate, there's leadership coming out of the House of Representatives. Here we have a place that's reliant on State House, because this Senate, let's spare the National Assembly for now because we haven't seen much, but this Senate, for sure, is being run from other places other than the seat of the Speaker.
Yvonne, look at it this way. My disappointment is that, first, as a journalist, and secondly, as a citizen and an admirer of the Senate, the last two houses, 2013, 2017, 2017, 2022. Comparatively, I would say the Senate did a better job than the National Assembly in terms of quality and even conduct. I would even go a step ahead and say, even in terms of the personnel in the two chambers of the Senate, in the previous two houses. Look at it this way. The matter that has triggered that kind of an altercation in the Senate, in my view, is a very small matter. Very, very small matter.
Yeah.
I mean, compare the quarrel over a minority whip to the issue that was in the National Assembly when the House was immediately inaugurated. You remember the crisis of who is majority, who is minority?
Right.
You remember the game of numbers there? You remember even the question of where do the parties that were previously members of Azimio, where do they belong to when the numbers are counted at that particular time? You remember that is the debate that was so huge in such a way that it potentially could paralyze operations in the National Assembly. Even though we knew very well that Moses Wetangula, a former senator, now Speaker of the National Assembly, is a principal in the Kenya Kwanza team. But his decision, his communication on the majority-minority matter in the National Assembly, though some members disagreed with, respected it. And you didn't see quarrels in the National Assembly. And the National Assembly has more members than the Senate, 349 compared to 67. Imagine if Kingi was the Speaker in the National Assembly. If you're unable to manage a small number of 67 over a small matter like who is minority whip, who is not, how would that matter have been navigated of who is majority, who is minority, and probably with more members and more numbers to take control of? So it boils down to one thing, and 100% agree with LK, leadership. This is now an opportunity for Speaker Kingi to take charge, show leadership, guide the House, because this is a matter that ought to have been dealt with almost immediately. The whole week, the Senate has wasted precious
and this week
parliamentary time discussing things that have no relationship whatsoever to what the senators are supposed to be doing in that House.
But again, honestly, what else would they have been doing?
There are many things. As we speak, imagine, as we speak now, I've heard governors complain that they have not received money for the last 4 months or thereabout. I wish we had a serious and robust discussion in the Senate about that matter, but not who is minority, who is not majority, who is minority whip and who is
right. And again, it's back to my point about the level of discourse and the content of it in our political spheres. It's rather interesting the things that they choose to focus on. But listen, we're talking about leadership.